since the last time I was on the Dr. Phil show. All leads had been exhausted. Tommy Hudson, Ebby's detective, left Little Rock Police Department, and we were given a new detective who recently told me Ebby put herself in the drain. After he told me that, I was speechless. That's insane. That's when I just said, I'm done. I just closed the book on getting any more help with the Little Rock Police Department. He didn't say it was a cold case. It's gonna take someone coming forward because it's been investigated as much as it will be. People ask me if I believe we'll find Ebby's killer. I used to say, yes, absolutely. Well, I got the best they can get me. Now I'm on my own. Dr. Phil has been very gracious in giving us exposure for Ebby's case. Dr. Phil is keeping Ebby's story alive.
I'm here in Little Rock, Arkansas, investigating the mysterious death of Ebby Steppach. We're in Shalamont Park, and this is where Ebby's car was found. This is a picture of her 2003 silver Volkswagen Passat. What's interesting about the car is the fact that it was found with the key turned all the way in the ignition, as if it had been left running. It was out of gas. All of her personal items were in the car. I'm pulling up to the parking space where Ebby's car was found. I find it interesting that her car was all the way in the back of the parking lot because it's in a spot that you can't see from the street. I think it's significant that the car was backed into the space. Even if someone pulled into the parking lot, anything that you're doing is going to be hidden.
Police had said that the remains were skeletal and that the pipe opens near where Steppach's car was found.
Police now seem to be suggesting that she somehow crawled down there on her own, and that is not where the evidence that we have found has led us at all. I think it's really important to go down into that hole because I want people to understand how difficult it would be for someone her size and in her condition. She would have had to lift this manhole cover herself, and this is hard. It's super heavy. But she would then have to crawl down here and while balancing herself on a ladder, pull this back over. These rungs are very far apart. And they're hard to see even in broad daylight, by the way. Once you get down here, you can see that there's this pipe, this really small pipe, just a few inches wide, down at the bottom. The longer I spend here, the more I realize that it would have been basically impossible for Ebby to get down here on her own. Ebby's body was found down this drain pipe. She was over 70 feet in there. To demonstrate how absurd the idea is that she would have gone down there on her own, I'm actually gonna crawl down in there. It angles down in here, and it's so tight that if I go any farther, my arms, I'm not gonna be able to get out of here. Oh my God, it's very hard to back out. She would have had to have been all the way in the pipe because when they looked down in the manhole, they lifted the cover and they didn't see her down here. After being down there, I can say even more definitively, I think there was no way that she could have gotten down there herself. I believe that this is a solvable case. After spending a lot of time in this park, I'm more convinced than ever that the person who did this to Ebby had to be someone who was very familiar with this area and knew it really well. It feels to me like something that wasn't planned, like perhaps a crime of opportunity. Like someone saw her in her vulnerable state, took advantage of her, did something bad to her, and then just made sort of a panicked attempt to cover it up. I think that there is definitely one, possibly multiple people of interest here, and we need to find out why the stories aren't matching. After Ebby went missing, her family, of course, was scouring her social media because Ebby lived on social media. Laurie hired an IT guy to go through everything with her. Apparently, the IT guy discovered that in the days, weeks after Ebby went missing, someone had logged in to one of her social media accounts. Laurie also told me that the person who logged in was the guy who Ebby had been dating on and off. I was able to get access to some of Ebby's Google searches on the last weekend she was alive. I've driven the route a lot. I've driven to all the different addresses. Some of them we can trace to people she knew. But I think understanding her pattern of life is really crucial to figuring out what happened to her.
Catherine, you created a timeline you believe is a more accurate depiction of Ebby's online behavior in the days up until her death. And I want to take a look at that. So on Friday, October 23rd, at 9:27 a.m., she Googles McDonald's on Markham. and at 11:22 Googles a friend's address.
Right.
And then at 11:22 an address near her father's home. So what do you make of those first three entries?
Well, she was not living at home. She had her parents had basically said, if you can't follow our rules, then you need to move out. So she had moved out. She was living largely. She would stay with different friends' houses. She was couch surfing. So she would Google the address where she was going to go, and then she would drive there. And this was her pattern. All we've heard since the beginning of this case is the narrative about Friday night when she went to a party. And we've heard she was gang raped by 4 men and they videotaped it. That was her concern, that there might be a video. And until recently, the police had been saying to Laurie that they knew where Ebby was on Saturday night and that she was safe. But now they're saying, we don't know where she was on Saturday night.
Well, here's what we know about Saturday. At 2 a.m., she Googles a friend's address, and then she Googles American Horror Story at almost noon. And then she Googles, I was recorded without my consent. Right after that, she Googles how to file a police report.
Yeah, on Saturday afternoon, her mindset was she was concerned something might have happened that was without her consent. She was figuring out how to report what was rape. She was figuring out how to report it to the police department, and she called the police department.
Now, my next guest says he had been dating Ebby right up to her death in October 2015. Now, he says he has never spoken publicly about Ebby before, until now. Now, please welcome Eric, who joins us virtually from Cincinnati, Ohio. So, Eric, thank you so much for agreeing to talk about this.
How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, and I'm very, very curious. Why have you chosen to speak publicly about Ebby now and here?
It's a part of my life. It's not going away. It happened, and I really want answers. So at this point, I at least have to try to help.
When was the last time that you spoke with Ebby?
I believe her brother called me after he couldn't get in contact with her on the 25th, and then I called her, and she answered for a second. That was the last time I talked to her.
Okay, and what was her state of mind?
She was scared. She didn't seem normal. She didn't seem okay.
So you were concerned when you talked to her that she wasn't herself?
I was concerned because of, she came over frantic. She wasn't happy. She wasn't her normal self when she came over, but she also wasn't impaired then. But then when I heard her voice on the phone, I could immediately tell that it was not okay.
Okay, you say when she came over. When did she come over to you to see you?
Actually, I believe it was right after the party.
What do you think happened to her?
I mean, honestly, I didn't know that they said she put herself in a drainage pipe. That doesn't make sense. I'm a huge person, and I've tried drop something down a drainage pipe, playing or something, and then had to try to pick a manhole up. That is not easy. I know she couldn't have done that, and not only that, she couldn't have put it back over. It's just that story doesn't make sense. I honestly believe that she might have, went to go see some friends. Ebby had a couple friends. They might have gave her something, and she had a bad reaction, and they tried to, leave and come back and realize she was gone. And I feel like that's honestly what happened. And they probably put her down there, trying to hide the evidence,
You said that maybe she OD'd and with some people, and instead of calling an ambulance or police, that they let her die and dumped her body. If that happened, what do you think should happen to those people?
I mean, honestly, they could have called the police and left. She didn't deserve that. She everybody makes mistakes, but she was a good person. They should for sure go to jail. That's not a question. I don't want to say I haven't thought about doing something myself. It kind of made me feel helpless for years.
I met Ebby when I was in 8th grade. The last time I saw Ebby was on the Friday before she went missing. The last conversation that I had with her was on that Friday evening when she told me that she was going to stay with a friend. She did not disclose with who, that she would be back in time for a church event that we had coming up on Sunday. Nothing she said raised any red flags or concern. Ebby would run away from home at times, but she would always come spend the night with friends or family. Ebby was a bit more of a private person with me when it came down to who else she was hanging out with. I can only assume that Ebby knew these people from these parties that she had been attending, and I know that she smoked weed at these parties, but I know nothing else. That Sunday, when Ebby was supposed to be coming to meet me for this church event, she never showed up. It was very strange for her to not show up because anytime that we had plans, she was always very transparent with me with if something came up, hey, I can't make it. And this time I had gotten no response from her. I know that she's in a better place and I miss her, and I just hate the way that she had to leave this world.
She started showing a little bit different behavior. You said that she kind of dramatized and, in fact, lied about something with her stepdad.
Yes, sir. She called me and said, hey, some things happened at home. Is there any way I can come over and talk to you for a little bit? I said, yeah, of course. You know, my door's always open to you. So she comes over and I said, hey, you know, what happened? And she goes, well, Michael, my stepdad, pushed me down some stairs at home. And, you know, I'm thinking, well, are you hurt? Like, or kind of what happened? Like, what caused this? And that was when she told me that they had told her basically that if she was going to drink or smoke weed or anything like that, that she couldn't live in their house. Later on, I actually found out from her mom, Laurie, that that was not true. So.
Did you ever confront her with that?
I never got the chance to.
Ebby was a unique individual. From the time she was born, she was full of joy. She had many friends. In our family, I'm kind of the fixer and the record keeper. Just a few months after Ebby disappeared is when I decided to make this timeline. This is where it first began, the timeline. This is her first poster they put up, the first flyer. I may be old-fashioned and old in age, but I became a kind of a sleuth on social media. This down here is the week after October 25th and the 30th when she disappeared and when her car was found. And all in between are things that I had heard from rumor, or I actually knew for a fact where she was or who she was with. October 4th through 8th, before she disappeared, she stayed with us for 4 days. But during these 4 days, she was very different. I could tell she was troubled. She was more distant. She said, Grandma, would you braid my hair like you used to when I was a little girl? And I said, oh, sure, Ebby. And I began to French braid her hair. I didn't realize it was the last time I would ever touch her. About 2 weeks ago, I received a very hurtful prank phone call. An adolescent female voice said, Grandma, help me, please. I'm in trouble, I don't know where I am. I have no idea whose rule book allows them to do something so cruel. It's been 6 years since my granddaughter was killed. It's very distressing knowing that the person or persons who caused this death of my granddaughter are walking the streets. I'm hoping Dr. Phil can keep her in the public eye. I feel like something good is going to come from this.
Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And I'm so sorry for your loss. Why have you chosen now to speak out?
I wanted to speak in the beginning, but the law enforcement, the authorities said, would you give us a chance to do our job? And so, you know, don't be talking about it because you don't know who's out there. And so I honored that. I didn't want to muddy the waters with, well, here's her mother and here's her father and here's friends. And so I just remained quiet all this time.
She did not put herself down in that drain pipe, which means somebody else did. And let me tell you, there are times in life when you have the opportunity to do the right thing. Let this be one of them.
Yes.
Let this be one of those times when you say, you know what, I cannot do something and just go on with my life and pretend that I don't know. Or you can say, this is one of those times where I can step up and have the courage to do the right thing, even if you do it anonymously. You know, integrity is doing the right thing when nobody's looking and nobody's listening. Well, maybe this is your time to find out who you are. And maybe you were just driving by and you saw something that you didn't know at the time meant anything. But hearing all of this, you go, wow, this could mean something. Then report that. It could be that little piece of the jigsaw puzzle that brings it all together. Her daughter's body was discovered in a drain pipe.
I'm actually going to crawl down in there.
What is the most compelling piece of new evidence you've uncovered?
There is absolutely no way she could have gotten down there by herself.
Somebody knows something.
A Dr. Phil exclusive. Check your local listings.
Do you have a story or a question for me? Click the link in the description and tell me what in the world is going on.